rooms each and every single day. Let's bring our boy Philly.500 in here. Kind of something what we've been saying now. Brother, how you doing, man? How was your fourth?
Oh, I can't complain. It was really good, except for I did fly the drone into my daughter's head, so that wasn't too good. Nothing bad, but,
Everything okay at home? We're all right?
Yeah. A little bit of a misjudgment, maybe a little too many drinks.
Did you agree with me what I said about the Eagle DT room? This is what I said about it. I said, look, Fletcher Cox, experience, still productive. I thought Fletcher was really good towards the end of the year when they added some depth with Joseph and with Sue. And so he was productive, and he's going to be leaned on a lot this coming first part of the season, especially as they get the new guys acclimated to playing more reps. But give me your sense of what you thought his year was a year ago.
In what way do you mean?
Any way you want to fill that line in.
I thought with you're talking about Fletcher Cox, right?
Yeah.
I thought Fletcher, he had about 7.5 sacks. I thought it was pretty good, but I also think that the fact that he didn't get as many reps and he got more chance to rotate in and to rest. He talked and he complained a little about early in the year about getting too many reps. So I thought that, I thought he was pretty effective once they were able to rotate him in and he didn't quite get as many snaps. I think his production went up. So I thought from that standpoint, he's pretty good. And I think if Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter could both start, I think that if he could rotate in and limit his snaps so you're not overusing him, I think he'll be great.
I said this about Jordan. Tell me if your evaluation, you disagree or agree. I said this about him. And again, we're looking at position rooms. We're 21 days to camp right now. So I said this about him. He showed signs of being effective on the run, but it was inconsistent. He has to improve as a pass rusher. And right now, he's not a 3-down defensive tackle. Third down, he's not very good at pass rushing. He's shown signs. Now, again, he was in a different role too. And I threw this in as a little caveat here, Philly, that, when you're at Georgia and you're a starter for 3 years and then you get put into a backup position in Philadelphia, even I remember going from that kind of scenario, you're sitting there on the sidelines going, shit, man, what am I doing here? So, it's kind of a different role for him. He was a little bit overweight. But that's how I saw his year last year.
I thought I saw it, and maybe this is my Eagle fan bias slant at it, right? But I thought for a guy that came in out of shape and that would take 2 plays and will suck in all the air he possibly could, for him to be as effective early on and against the run as he was, I thought that was a good sign. And I actually thought as the year was going, I thought he was getting into a groove, and I thought he was starting to play better and better. And then he had that injury. And then at that point, he never really got a chance because at that point you got Joseph and you got Sue. But I actually thought for him not being in shape, and I see that as the biggest problem. I think his conditioning, he wasn't a 3-down defensive tackle last year, but you can't tell me a guy with his athletic ability and everything that he showed he can do physically, that if he is not well conditioned, that he can't be. So to me, his biggest issue is his conditioning and his weight. And I thought that was the reason why we might not have gotten the production we want. That's just my opinion.
Philly, but here's the deal, and you're not wrong, but here's also, with all that athleticism that you mentioned, he's never been a productive guy. Mm-hmm. 39 tackles in 4 years at Georgia? You think that's a lot?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily that I think it's a lot, but you talk about Georgia. How much do they rotate those guys in? How much do they do that? That's a pretty talented team.
It is.
With the kid Walker, from Jacksonville, last year he was the first player in the draft. He had like 5.5 sacks the whole year or something like that. A lot of those guys don't put up huge, giant numbers, but they don't have to. So to me, if you look at a guy that constantly is double teamed and has always got 2 guys on him, I think that to me, more important than the numbers or the statistics in college is what his ceiling is. And I think that given the right situation, I think those numbers will go up. I don't think he'll be I don't think he's going to be Jerome Brown 10 sacks a year. I don't think he's going to be that. But I do think he can stop the run, take the double team, and get you five sacks, 6 sacks, 7 sacks any 1 year. And I think that would
be a great year if he turned out 5 sacks this year.
Yeah.
And dude, if they can be 10th versus the run, Nakobe Dean will have a great year. They've got to be in that room where they're in the top 10 because that guy's a little guy, man. Let me get to Jalen Carter here. This is what I said about him. 0 experience, obviously, but I think he has all the tools to be a 3-down lineman, an explosive player. His feet are great inside. He's great in traffic. Watch the way he uses his hands, how he engages, how he gets off guards, how he controls the center. You could play him in a 3-0-1. You could play him in a shade 1. You could do so many things with him. To me, the only thing that I think – this guy's got all the tools in the toolbox, in my opinion. I think it's just wind him up, let him go play. Yeah. Now, how much do you play him in the exhibition season just to get him acclimated to the speed of the game?
I mean, I always get in trouble because I always think they don't play their guys enough. And then they come out the regular season and the first week they look great. I would like to see him get reps. I mean, he probably needs repetition, but I believe Jalen Carter starts the year right away. I think Jalen Carter is, like you have said before, can be more like Jerome Brown than, like, let's say, Jordan Davis. But when you're combining Sills, when you're putting both those guys together,
I know
you have something. You have the opportunity for something just dominant.
You could right now. The Eagles are banking on 2 guys that you went consecutive drafts in the interior for the next 10 years. If these guys pan out and play to the expectations of what some people think, and I would also make this argument about those 2 guys. Again, I'll say it again. How Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis and how Jalen Carter play is going to determine what kind of season Nakobe Dean has.
I agree.
If they get knocked off the football, that kid's not going to last 17 games getting blown up like that because he's just not a physical specimen, and he's got a history of injuries. And so he's a smart kid. He knows everything. But here's something that you just mentioned also too, Philly. So here's a guy that saw very limited reps last year when it came to the Mike linebacker. You're telling me you're just going to line him up against a Belichick offense, put him out there against a Bill O'Brien offense, having had no reps at the Mike linebacker position when it comes to game situation, and think that guy is just going to be a good football player against Belichick and those guys? That's a tall task. That's a lot to ask from a guy who's never started in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, you have a guy come in, he really has had like hardly any snaps. I think you're right. I mean, it's hard to know how good he's going to be and all those kind of things. All we can look at is the fact that I believe this guy was supposed to be a first-round pick. That's where everybody projected him. If you look at everything the Eagles have said about him, I believe they let both those linebackers walk because they like this kid a lot. And I also think, they already gave him the green dot, right? He's calling into place. So they think he's very smart, and I think the Eagles think a ton of him. And that's why they let those linebackers off the team. So in my opinion, I'm banking on the fact that the Eagles organization is high on this kid, because let's face it. The Eagles don't like to spend a lot of money at linebacker. I get it. I know, but they're also very aggressive. They also know they're on the verge of being a Super Bowl champion. I have to think that if they were really that concerned about Nakobe Dean or didn't believe in him, that they would have made another move at linebacker.
Remember something, too, when I say something about O'Brien's offense. He won division titles as an NFL head coach. His problem became when he became the general manager of the Texans, and I asked him to start making personnel moves. But he was winning with quarterbacks that you never heard of and winning division titles. And he developed Deshaun Watson into the quarterback that just got a $230 million deal in Cleveland. And he just comes out of a program that won national championships at Alabama. Won a Super Bowl, too, when he was a coordinator in New England. This guy's going to be quite the challenge, O'Brien, because, again, he was Tom Brady's offensive coordinator in New England. So this guy knows what he's doing here. Here's Milton Williams now. There was a guy that went on with the guys at Sports Take a couple months ago, and guy called him a dude. I don't think he's a dude. I actually like him. I think he needs reps, Philly. I think he's a guy that you could play in a 1 technique, a 0 technique, a shade, a 3, a 5. I actually like this player, 500-pound bench presser. He's got decent feet. I think he's going to be instrumental in the rotation and really giving a spell for these guys. I think he could be an important part of this thing.
Yeah, I do too. And the Eagles love the rotation. I mean, I think they've got, Hargrave is definitely a big loss. I mean, I can't say that enough. He's a big loss. I think in the long run, you've replaced him with Jalen Carter. How quick does he acclimate to the NFL? But I do think Milton Williams is a guy that you're going to be able to rotate in, that has experience, that has shown flashes. And I like the kid they got in Kadavius Street. I think he was another guy. So I think they got some depth there,
This Kentavious Street kid comes over from the Saints. I actually like this sign. This is kind of a little sneaky sign by Howie. They were really good against the run the last couple of years, and they gave Tampa fits every single time they played Brady. I mean, it was a back-and-forth football game, and this wasn't a very strong draft when it came to defensive tackles. So, Philly, I actually like that this sign here. I mean, I don't know how many reps he's going to get, but I think that this is pretty good depth here. Again, he's a backline player, but as we know, it's the war of attrition. So, in all, this is what I wrote down about the group. Experience is the issue, obviously, but I think they're more athletic. I think there's opportunity for more upside. Williams needs a little bit more reps. I actually like the group. We just have to see him go out and play.
Yeah. I agree. I believe that the key to the whole group and to this defense is Jordan Davis, because I think Jalen Carter is going to be good, and I think he's going to do his thing. But if Jordan Davis is in shape and he takes a jump and he is just what the Eagles thought he would be in the first round, I think the whole complexion of that defense, especially those linebackers that you were talking about, completely changes. I really do. I think Jordan Davis is a big key to this defense.
Would you be interested in going out and adding Miles Jack to this defense? And I would say this to you, Philly, Miles Jack and even Kyle Van Noy, those two guys are better than anything right now that the Eagles have in their linebacking room. And I say that with respect to Nakobe, just with the fact that he hasn't played. Now, Nakobe's been in the system. I get it all. But those two guys are legitimate NFL experienced players, something the Eagles are lacking in that room. Would you have interest in both, or would you have interest in only one of them?
I would have interest in all linebackers, to be honest with you. I mean, because I think you could use it as an upgrade. My only thing is this. I think if I was Howie and I was dealing with my linebacking situation, I really think I would wait on bringing a linebacker in until the trade deadline. I want to see what these young guys can do and give them a chance before I go and take snaps away from them. I would focus more of my resources, like probably at safety early on. But I think the linebacking position would be like a great trade deadline move.
All right, I'm going to throw this at you here, and I know you're going to throw up on me here.
Watch out now.
You're going to actually take a Philly pie on me here.
Okay.
Why does Dak Prescott own the Eagles? Listen here. 8-3. 8-3. Averages 32 attempts, 22 completions, 251, 68 completion percentage, 20 touchdowns, 98.9 QB ranking. Last year, he threw for a touchdown, 5 career touchdowns in a single game against the Eagles. Why do they struggle with him?
It is, I'm going to tell you, there's a few reasons why. First of all, you see the star on the helmet, right? That is
Yeah.
a satanic store. Okay, that is a satanic store. They sacrifice chickens. They do a lot of black magic voodoo stuff. So we got to deal with that. But when you look past that, I actually think the record is overrated, because if you look since Dak Prescott has been playing, the Eagles have not been a consistent juggernaut. Dallas has been the most consistent team in terms of roster and talent on the roster. The Eagles have been this, right? They've had a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of changing. And to me, I see it like that Dallas had nobody really to compete with except for an Eagles who were very up and down. And if he built a great record, never had division as good as his record was, never won the division twice. I think he blew his load. I think he had a great record, but now you have an Eagles team that is much better. And I got to tell you, Dak Prescott plays the first game of the Eagles still beat him. And if Jalen Hurts plays in that second game, there's no way that I believe the Eagles lose that game, even though Dak had a good game. I think Dak Prescott blew his chance when he had a division that was inconsistent. And now that the division's getting better, I think that record is going to get worse in the next few years.
Philly, the last 3 games that Dak has played against the Eagles have not been competitive.
Well, I mean, the last game was competitive.
No, it wasn't. He had 5 touchdowns.
Yeah,
but threw 80% and was 357 in the game.
Yeah, but the Eagles could have won the game on the last drive. Gardner Minshew
so you're
did
telling
not
me
come
Cooper
up big.
Rush then kept the Cowboys into the fourth quarter going into
no. Jonathan Gannon kept the Cowboys in that game in the fourth. They were up 20-0 in the second quarter. Remember, that game was like a big learning curve for the Eagles because they were up like 20-0 and he took the foot off the gas. Remember the first game? I don't believe that Dak Prescott beats the Eagles in that Christmas Eve game. Now, I'm not saying he didn't have a good game, and I'm not saying he's not a good regular season quarterback. But when you have a great record for the division and you have nothing to show for it, and now you have teams that are more competitive or better, the Eagles are not going to be up and down. The Eagles are built for the long term. So I think Dak blew his load.
Okay, so
is that the biggest fan?
No, you went a long way. Hey, dog,
I'm a lawyer. I'm going to run for president for that.
Hey, dude, you're almost at the New Jersey Exchange up there on the Jersey Turnpike. You went a long way on that exit. You're getting off on Lombardi's exit over there. I'll say this to you: who do you fear more, Daniel Jones, or do you fear Dak?
Oh, I would have to say I fear Sam Howell. No, I think Dallas is I hate to say this because I don't want to give Dallas anything, but I think they're a good team. I think they're the third best team in the conference, probably. Yeah. I would say Eagles, Niners, Cowboys. So I think the Cowboys are a bigger threat because I think they've got more weapons, but I don't think that I think a lot of that record in the past, I mean, I just feel like, man, the Eagles were not built the same way. It was kind of like we were always had a quarterback injured. We were kind of up and down. We were good, bad, kind of good. And now I think with the team that they have, I don't know if he could keep that record up. I mean, imagine having that kind of record and you can't even win back-to-back divisions.
Okay, final one here. Of all the players this year you're looking forward to seeing play, who's the one player in the Eagles you're looking forward to seeing play?
That's a great question because there's a lot of guys, but
the one guy you're going to be focused the most on this year is who?
Probably Jalen Carter, but it'd be him or a close Devontae Smith. It'd be either of those two guys.
You know who mine is? It's Dallas Goedert.
Okay.
I think of all the players on that team, there's 2 of them that I think have a chance to jump into that elite conversation. Is Jordan Mailata and Dallas Goedert. Do you agree with me? If those 2 guys play healthy this year and play a full 17 games, they're locks for the Pro Bowl.
Yes. I definitely think so. I do.
And doesn't Goddard then move himself into the top 4 conversation in tight ends? Because let's say at Philly, what do you have? Almost 700 yards last year receiving?
Yeah, something like that.
He missed 4 games?
Yeah,
Okay,
something
so
like
he
that.
would have been knocking on the 1,000-yard number
Right.
himself, maybe what, 70 catches, 75
Yeah.
catches? So he'd have been
Yep.
knocking on that door also, which may
Yeah.
have put Hurts over $4,000, right? So
It might have, yeah.
of those 2 guys, right? If they play at their elite level,
Mhm.
they're going to be. I mean, Jordan Mailata, dude, is still learning the position. I was between those 2 guys because I think Malata's got a gigantic ceiling still. I think his best football is still 5 years out.
I agree. I think he's still got his best years to come. I agree. I like those 2 guys. That's pretty interesting. I think Devontae Smith, when it's all said and done, he will be recognized as the top 5 wide receiver this year. I really believe that.
You think when Devontae Smith is done with his career in Philly, he'll be the all-time Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver in the league, in the team's history?
Yes, I do. And I think that we should just start measuring him for his gold jacket right now, because I think he's that good.
You think he's a gold jacket guy?
I do. I think when it's all said and done, I think so.
Who's throwing him the ball?
Jalen Hurts. What do you mean?
So
95 catches last year, right? I mean, he can definitely improve on that.
So if Devontae's going to the Hall of Fame,
that's right.
Are you now putting a proclamation out that if Devontae is going to the Hall of Fame and he retires the greatest wide receiver in Eagle history, what's the collateral comment on Jalen Hurts then? Where's he in your thought process?
I think I'll put it this way. I think that we have entered the golden era of Philadelphia Eagles football. I believe that this is going to be their decade. So I'm talking multiple championships. I think buckle in. I think the best years are right now. I really do. All that suffering, the Fog Bowl, all that stuff that we went through, it's like this is our time.
Rondé Barber, baby. That's all I got.
Man, I've never. That's the most depressed game I've ever. To me,
was it the Fog Bowl, the loss of the Super Bowl to Kansas City, or the NFC title game when Rondé got that pick?
Honestly, I got to tell you that the NFC title game still stings more. It still hurts more because I was so sure. We all were sure that we were going to the Super Bowl, and to go up 7-0, Deuce Staley walks right in the end zone. You're thinking, here we go. We're going to beat Tampa Bay again. They never beat us. You're closing the vet. Man, I have not recovered from that. I literally don't think I spoke a week. I didn't speak for a week after that game. That game is like the most depressing game. Fog Bowl was like, that was the first playoff game I ever saw the Eagles playing, but I didn't see anything. You couldn't see anything in that
Jerome
game.
told me that he's never been involved in anything like that in his entire life. I mean, dude, he said this. When the quarterback dropped back, there were parts of that game where he didn't even see where the guy was. Nobody saw anything.
I believe it. I mean,
it was he goes, it was the craziest thing he's ever seen in his life.
Yeah.
Or been involved with. And we've been involved in a lot of rainstorms down in South Florida.
Yeah.
But he said he's never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, you couldn't see anything on TV. And I just remember early in that game, we scored a touchdown. They called it back on a penalty. I think if they don't call that a penalty, then the Eagles probably would have won that game. But I don't know, to this day, I still don't understand why they didn't suspend the game until the fog cleared. I just don't get it. It's crazy.
Always remember this, Philly. JFK got shot and murdered. They didn't cancel games. They're not canceling games for a fog.
That's true. That's true. But they have done it for snow. Remember a few years.
They've moved it and all this and that. Yeah. Okay. But always remember, man, president gets killed and they just played on.
What city was it, by the way?
That's the league. Hey, Philly, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much, my friend.
Appreciate it.
You got it. That is Philly.500. Make sure you check out his great podcast. That guy does such a great job. I really appreciate him coming aboard. All right, I'm going to throw this out now. Top of the hour. Also, I got some numbers on Jalen I want to get out to you guys. That'll be at the top of the hour. Also, don't forget, Pete Rose will be with us at 4:30 Eastern time. Who will be the Eagles' X factor for 2023? What name comes to mind will be the X factor on determining if this football team has success? We all know this. Teams that lose the Super Bowl, I think in the Super Bowl era, there's only 7 of them that have ever gone back. Who is the X factor on that football team for them to have success in 2023? Swift, Blankenship. Look at 85, man, being a football guy. Bob goes, do you get an X factor on? Pick one, Bob. The one thing that outweighs, the one person that outweighs whether this team has success or not is who? Dean, Swift, James, health. Another great take. Barbara said Swift. Okay. Could be Slay. Here's where I'm going. We kind of broached this yesterday a bit. I think the one guy that's got a ton of pressure on him this 2023 season, I think it's Sean Desai. I think it's him and no one else. Jalen Hurts is going to score 35 points, 33 points. That offense is going to put numbers on the board. We don't know what that thing's going to look like. We have no idea. That defense is not going to be better than it was a year ago because you're playing better teams, better quarterbacks, better coaches. You're playing the number 1 schedule in the NFL. Get that out of your minds. You're not playing stiffs this year. You're not playing in the Pac-12 any longer or Big 12. You're now playing in the Southeastern Conference with the big boys, with people that others revere. And I've brought this to your attention as well. You know, everyone says that Russell Wilson is finished. Well, Russell Wilson went from the soft-ass NFC to the AFC and got his head kicked in. He thought he was just going to roll into the AFC with all those great quarterbacks in a really good division, and he got his ass kicked. You know, when you're beaten up on, when Geno Smith, who's been a vagabond quarterback and has been a journey, Geno Smith is now being considered one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a journeyman. That tells you that the conference isn't that good and the competition isn't that good. There's 3 teams that are legitimate. There's 8 teams. And by the way, I'm not suggesting to you that the Eagles wouldn't be the second best team in the NFL even if they were in the AFC. They probably would be. But there's more room for error when you have that many good teams on that side of the aisle. Shit, the Kansas City Chiefs got beat by the Colts. And I know some of you idiots like to do this. Well, we beat the Colts. Yeah, I know. We beat the Colts. And, you know, we beat the Colts. Yeah. Then in the second half, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid were running circles around your defense. Guys were running into one another like it was a vaudeville act. Oh, passing guys off. Yeah, that worked. AFC's loaded. JM says that Denver was a shit show with Hackett in leadership role. That's why Russell Wilson played poorly? Because of a coach who had handled Aaron Rodgers all those years and all those 13-win seasons in the weak-ass NFC? I think it's got more to do with that. You went into the big league. And this year on the Eagles schedule, you're playing those guys. Jalen's never beaten them dudes. Okay? Those guys have all played against one another. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Herbert, Mahomes. They play against one another. Who do you play in the NFC? Dak and Dimes Jones. And Tyler Heineke. And a journeyman Geno Smith. And Brock Purdy. Dude, honestly, it's like naming minor league football players. I know more quarterbacks that play in the XFL than I do in the NFC. Okay? Seals, you give Dable all the credit for Danny Dimes, so why can't Hackett get the blame for Wilson? Because Dimes Jones is nowhere in the conversation of Russell Wilson. Once again, the New York Giants show you incompetence and how they handled that whole situation and how they're handling Saquon Barkley. Think of this, for instance. Here's the Giants. We brought this up yesterday, too. So you decided to pass on the $18 million fifth-year option on Daniel Jones, right? And you turn around because he has a couple good games, and you pay him $46.3 now? Overpaid, overrated, poor deal. And here's something else. So July 17th, the franchise tag's coming up. These guys got to all sign. I heard the guy, Xander, talking about Barkley. Why would I pay Barkley, who's had 3,000-yard rushing seasons in 5 years and has been hurt, $10 million when I could go get Dalvin Cook for $5 million and have the same player or even a better one? 5 straight years of 1,000 yards. He only rushed. He had less carries than what Jalen Hurts was trending to have. Hurts was going to have 200 carries. That's kind of what he had, 209. He's averaged that over his entire career in Minneapolis. Why in the world would I spend $10 million on a running back when I can go get Dalvin Cook at 28, who's still got a lot of tread on the tire? I would go get that. I think the reason why the Giants haven't budged is because they know they can do that. Trade Barkley, sign Cook. I got the same guy. It's the same guy. All right. I want to take a look at Jalen Hurts and where I want to see him progress. Also, Pete Rose at 4:30. Hit the like button. Hour number 2. Keep it here on the National Football Show.